You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristodoulou.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to more of the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Haristodoulou, and today we are doing our weekly USFL Power Rankings that we do every single Monday following each week of USFL action. And my, oh my, did I have a week predicting another 4-0 weekend, putting us over 500. I'm now sitting at 13-11. Thank goodness, because I was having a tough stretch of weeks just with picks splitting 500 or going under 500 or back up above it. Power rankings, not a ton of movement. I guess there's some teams slipping around like a spot or two here. The top half of the power rankings, though, fairly solid in where they are. It's more so the bottom 5 teams that are doing a lot of movement. So make sure you hit that like button. Comment down below. How did you do with your predictions this weekend, if you made any? Also, on top of that, what is your power rankings for all 8 of these teams here? And let's dive in and talk some PR. So we'll start from the bottom and work our way up to the top here, beginning with the number 8 team, falling from number 7, sitting at 1-5. The Pittsburgh Maulers have dropped back to the bottom of the barrel for me. After another tough week offensively, Vadli came out last week and kind of lit up the world. You know, everyone was excited to see him. I was actually excited to see him going into this week, and things kind of not as good as they were last week, I guess is the best way I can put it. Simply 17 of 34. He had 198 yards. He had a touchdown, a couple of interceptions that set the Maulers back. He did have a rushing touchdown as well. So the Vadli experiment has kind of hit a little bit of a bump in the road, I would say. Offense really didn't find too much success until late in the game. The mistakes came early, and then it felt like as the Breakers were trying to kind of get themselves out of the game and run away with the win there, the defense kind of softened up a little bit, and the Maulers started to move a little bit more. But Pittsburgh just offensively does not do it for me, and it's not even the players more so. It is just the play calling. I cannot get behind what is going on in Pittsburgh there. I do like some of the players that are on that team. Bailey Gaither's an awesome wide receiver. Madre London, who didn't really get to see the ball too much until the second half. You know, by the time they finally started feeding him the football, he ended up having a pretty solid game. I think he totaled out for 50 yards total. I don't have it written here, but I do know that he was averaging 5 yards a carry off the 10 opportunities he saw. You know, I don't get it. There are players in that system that have shown talent in games, and sometimes I guess they don't show up because Madre London has had some games where he has not had great opportunities, but I don't know. I don't know what to make of this team. I thought maybe with adding Vadli last week and seeing the way they fared, you know, this was it. Like they were going to maybe start to make a little bit of a turnaround. And I did pick the Breakers to win that game against them. I just expected it to be a little bit better of a losing effort, I guess I could say. So overall, I mean, they're sitting at the bottom for me. We'll have to see where things go from here, but a little bit of a bump in the road with the Vadli experiment. I still do not like the offensive play calling. The defense, I mean, not super opportunistic against the Breakers. There was no turnovers forced or anything like that. They did have 3 sacks and 5 tackles for loss, but just not a great week for the Maulers, and hopefully, you know, at some point they'll be able to turn the ship around in some capacity. Going into number 7 now, slipping up from the bottom of the barrel to right above the bottom of the barrel. They are the crust now of the barrel. We have the Houston Gamblers, who are sitting at 1-5. They do move up a spot despite their loss this week, because in a losing effort, it literally came down to the final play of the game. It just seems like week after week after week, it's heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak of a loss. And they continue their trend and inability to put points on the board in the second half, with only 6 this week. Again, their season high is 10 points in the second half. They are unable to get things going offensively, despite the fact that in the first half, it's like a complete different team. And then they just go ghost in the second half. I don't know. if it's just like the lack of offensive adjustments being made or like defense. Yeah, that's probably what it has to be. I don't know exactly what it is. I don't play for the Gamblers. I'm not in the coaching staff, but I would have to believe that they are just not making the right adjustments going into half number 2 against whatever these defenses are doing with their adjustments. It just doesn't make any sense. How are you putting up, they lost by 1 point. I mean, how do you put up, I forget what the score total was going into halftime, but you put up, a fair amount of points going into halftime. You lose, 26-25. So you're looking at 19 points in the first half and then 6 in the second half. And it wasn't until like the end of the game off of like a weird fumble play. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't know. You can like feel my frustration, I'm sure, because the Gamblers are a team that should be so much better record-wise. They had 0 snaps in the third quarter, and I have the game up here on my screen over on the side because I want to be able to talk the numbers here. Yeah, they were able to put up 19 in the first half and then 6 in the second. But I was looking at the play-by-play stuff. I feel like I didn't notice this during the game as I was watching it for some reason. But when I looked back, they did not have the ball for 15 minutes and 14 seconds during the second half. The entire third quarter was manhandled by the Generals on a 14-play, 59-yard drive. It went for nearly 9.5 minutes, a second under. They blocked the field goal, fumbled on the field goal block return, and gave it right back to the Generals, who then took it down another 10-play, 47-yard drive for another 5.5 minutes, which bled into the fourth quarter. You have got to prevent stuff like that from happening. You don't see the football for an entire quarter. Like, come on. And then to top it off, in the fourth quarter, what was their one drive but a missed field goal? 7 plays, nothing to do. And then again, the Generals had the fumble. They scooped and scored. So thankfully they got themselves on the board. But then you watch the Generals march down the field on a 15-play, 80-yard drive. Took damn near 6 minutes off the clock to win the game with the quarterback sneak by Luis Perez at the end. Mike, my goodness, from the offense to the defense, this has not been a good week, and it feels like things might be slightly falling apart more and more as we go through week to week for the Gamblers here. But, I mean, man, 1-5 is where they're sitting. The run game was pretty much completely absent. 19 carries for 57 yards. Clayton Thorson actually had a pretty solid first half when he was able to get the ball. I mean, he was 15-19, 171 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick. When he had the ball, he was pretty good with his opportunities this week. Very, very solid overall. If only he just had some more opportunity maybe in the third quarter or something. I don't know, but my goodness, an absolute disaster of a week for the Gamblers, sitting at number 7 now. And then moving into the number 6 spot, I would say at this point, even though they lost by a couple of scores in the fourth quarter, the Michigan Panthers, man, they were very competitive until the very end. I mean, they hung in until the final 15 minutes, despite the fact that Bo Scarborough was mowing over them. The Shea Patterson interception came in late, which has been kind of like the story so far through this season here. Then back-to-back sacks on the final drive sent them into a turnover on downs. I mean, the Panthers were fighting until the very end, and I want to give them credit for that. I would say that the game was a little bit closer than the scoreline would actually reveal, but inability to force any turnovers. I mean, if you're going up against a team like the Stallions, who they have such a potent offense and they can kill you on the ground and through the air, I mean, you have to be able to stop and steal a possession or two at some point during this game. And if you're letting the Stallions score 33 points on you and you're not responding, or you're giving the ball away and not taking the ball away at any point in the game, it's not a recipe for success. Again, I'm so torn on the bottom 3 teams here in the USFL because they're all 1-5 and they've all had tough, heartbreaking losses and then disastrous losses. So the bottom 3 are by far, I would say, the biggest question mark, and it's a straight up toss up. I mean, if any of you think any differently about the bottom 3 teams, feel free, let me know. I'm really curious to see what other people think. You could argue, maybe the Gamblers above the Panthers, but after watching them not touch the football for an entire quarter of play, I don't know if I can really have the Gamblers above the Panthers anymore. I mean, the Panthers have had some also heartbreaking losses, like that missed field goal against the Stars a couple of weeks ago. They've been in some tight contests themselves. They've been in it pretty much every single game. It's just Shea Patterson tends to turn the ball over when it matters most. The bottom three teams are a toss-up. I like Michigan right now at number 6. I feel comfortable with it, but I mean, you guys let me know how you're feeling about these bottom 3 teams. I just feel like you could really organize them in any way depending on what you really like and dislike about them. Then coming in at number 5, Tampa Bay Bandits sitting at 3-3. 3 turnovers and a tough third quarter essentially led to this loss here. They were in it to the end, especially late, and you could argue maybe it was just a softer defense that was kind of letting up as they were sitting on a 2-touchdown cushion. They were kind of playing a little bit more off and just trying to keep the ball in front of them, not letting up the big play. But I mean, Te'amu went 27 of 40, 333 yards and 4 touchdowns with a pick, and he also had 9 carries for 61 yards on the ground. He had his best game of the season. Again, you could argue maybe it was because it was softer coverage late in the game, but they were putting up the numbers and keeping the game as close as possible all the way to the end there. And then, I mean, the game literally ended inside the 5 of the Stars end zone, or not end zone there, of the Stars red zone there. So, I mean, it was a tight game towards the end there. The Bandits defense is continuing to show some flaws here and there. The team was really built around size and experience, I know, but it feels like going through games, and the Stars are a team. I think the Breakers are another one, and I would even say maybe even the Stallions are like another team on top of that they're so athletic and they just move so fast, and it feels like that bigger defense of the Bandits tends to struggle with those like more athletically gifted teams. And the Stars, no doubt about it, one of those teams, especially if you see the way that ground game was going. I just think that, the defense needs some work. They should probably look in some places to add a little bit more athleticism and maybe take a smaller approach to the defense, I guess you could say, because I guess smaller does mean faster per se. I mean, they're sitting at 6th in yards allowed per game right now, 6th in points allowed as well. They've got to figure something out on defense because the offense is starting to roll here and things are looking good under Te'amu. It's just a matter of getting a defense to back them up so they're not allowing 35 points and scoring 28 and losing the game. But I do like them at number 5 for right now. Coming in at number 4, Philadelphia Stars, who have moved into 3-3. They're coming up from 5 and into the 4th spot. I said it in my picks preview just a couple of days ago with for the USFL, and I said, the Stars need to find a ground game. They had way too many games where they were just like completely abandoning the run. There's like 3 games where they're, I believe, under 30 yards of rushing altogether. They had only had one 100-yard rushing game coming into this week. And boy, did they do it. Matt Colburn II, 18 carries, 140 yards, and 3 tutties on the day, showed up to work and got the job done. He did exactly what this team needed to do to find balance and steamroll a Bandits defense they're not like the worst in run D, but they're also not the best. They're kind of like middle of the pack. I believe they're 5th in the league in run D allowed, or in rushing yards, allowed. Case Cookus, he did just what he needed to do to win that game. 11 of 20, a little bit over 50% completions, 73 passing yards, not a whole lot, but I mean, the ground game altogether, I think they totaled up like 179 yards. It was just the 140 from Matt Colburn that really stood off the stat sheet there. He had a couple of passing touchdowns as well. Did enough, didn't turn the ball over, no mistakes, played a really clean game. The Stars, from start to finish, were on a mission, and that ground game was unbelievable all game long. And the defense came to work. 3 forced turnovers. They had a pick and 2 fumbles. They also had 3 sacks and 7 tackles for loss. The defensive front was eating the Bandits up alive all game long, disrupting everything. They did exactly what they needed to do to knock off a team that, going into the season, a lot of people really thought were one of the best teams in the league and have they've floated around like the middle of the pack for the last few weeks for me right now. But awesome game. Defense bent, but did not break at the end there. Like I mentioned when we were just talking about the Bandits, they let them get all the way into the final 5 yards of the field, and they were able to shut things down in the red zone on 4th down, made the play, got the stop, and won the game. Excellent showing by the Philadelphia Stars. This is a dark horse team, and I said that as well going with the picks. If they got this game won, it puts some legitimacy in their name and what they bring to the table. I like the Stars. If they can continue to run the ball effectively, and I think they do have a good group of running backs there, This is a team to watch. It might not be everyone's favorite, but definitely a team to watch who can slip into the playoffs. Then we're looking at the New Orleans Breakers coming in at number 3, sitting at 4-2. I said going into this one against the Maulers, this was a trap game. The team has not looked as great defensively the last few weeks as it did early in the season. And at this point, I mean, it's more so the defense has been up and down than it has been great this year, because it was only really the first 2-3 weeks where the defense looked really, really good, and it kind of slipped down from there. I have to give credit to, Kyle Sloter. One thing I've talked about a lot, especially just this past week when I was doing the picks, was the amount of turnovers that he has. He was sitting at a net negative coming into this game, and I think he still is, technically speaking. He did not turn the ball over. It was exactly what they needed to do. I said they got to play a clean game, get in, get out, and get a win over a Maulers team that is struggling offensively, and they did just that. The ground game looked awesome behind Jordan Ellis and Anthony Jones. They combined for 149 yards and a couple of touchdowns between the two backs. Defense stepped up after a slower few weeks. Only one sack, but it's been a couple of weeks since, or actually it's been 3 weeks since the last time we saw them get a sack. 4 tackles for loss, but it was the 2 interceptions and the pick 6 by E.K. Brown that really turned things around and kind of locked down the game for them and the W. This was a win that the team needed to get and keep them on track and heading towards the playoffs. Happy to see them sitting at 4-2 as a Breakers fan myself. Good game by them. Great win. Didn't fall to the trap game. Still sitting at number 3 on the board. Love it. Then at number 2, the New Jersey Generals. They're sitting at 5-1, and I've got to give credit to the Generals, man. The fact that you come out winners when, I mean, you were dominating the game per se. I mean, when you look at, they had 40 minutes of time of possession, if I'm not mistaken there. I want to just check that number just to be sure. But I want to say it was 40 minutes. Yeah, 40 minutes and 25 seconds of time of possession in this game. You literally owned the ball for 2/3. Offensively, you're dominating the game. But then that fumble for a score late in the game puts you in a real bad spot. You drive down the field. You make it into the end zone as time expires on the quarterback sneak with Luis Perez. Credit to the tenacity and just the ability to, against all odds, come out with a W. You can tell that this team is just coached so well, and all the players have bought into the system that they are running there. They're running that disgusting dual QB system that is working, and I hate every second of it, but it's working, so I'm willing to admit that, but I just cannot stand that they don't just pick a QB1 and run with them. But, I mean, both quarterbacks have done well. They've both had a couple of games here and there where they didn't look great, but they've done really well in this 2 QB system that they're running here. So I guess I'm just going to have to, shut up and deal with it, but they're getting it done. Excellent job by them. They also swallowed up a little bit over 15 minutes of an entire quarter. I mean, offense was just extremely efficient. 358 yards total as well, 4 touchdowns. Like I mentioned, the 40 minutes of time of possession, just unbelievable job by the Generals, getting it done. There's a reason they're the number 2 team. There's a reason they took the Birmingham Stallions to the absolute limit in week number 1. It's clear that they are the number 2 team right now, and then sitting at that number 1 spot to wrap up the power rankings here. The Birmingham Stallions, who come in, they get another W in dominant fashion at the end there. Like I mentioned earlier when we were talking with the Panthers, they definitely were aggressive. They hung in there late, but in the fourth quarter, the Birmingham Stallions offense just kind of became too much and started to run away with the game. With CJ Marable out, the big signing of Bo Scarborough made the difference. He had 16 carries, 105 yards, and a touchdown. Jamar Smith, inaccuracy issues, but he's been kind of up and down with his inaccuracy, but overall, he's still getting the job done. He's still scoring at 135 yards and a couple of touchdowns, and the defense continuing to do what they do best. They're disruptive. They turn the ball over. They do a good job pretty much all game long. They had 3 sacks, a tackle for loss, an interception, and a fumble recovery as well. Birmingham has just continued to look like the definitive best team in the league, and it's kind of hard at this point to argue against them. I do know some people think that maybe the Generals are the better team and that, Birmingham just got lucky with their, comeback win at the end of week 1. You can say that if you want. That's totally up to you, and I can understand that narrative. But at the end of the day, the Birmingham Stallions did come out with a win, and I think a comeback from behind victory in a tight contest like that speaks more to the just like I said with the Generals about the great coaching and the players being bought into what they're doing there, very similar, if not better situation of that in Birmingham. And then, of course, you do have the fact that they're playing at home. It's always a home game for them. If you think that's the deciding factor, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know how much home field advantage really makes a difference in such a new league. But I've got to say, I am just like super impressed with what the Birmingham Stallions are doing here. Even when players are out, someone else is stepping in and then stepping up at that and making it the best opportunity, or making the best of the opportunity that they have and going big. And Scarborough was that guy this week. It was a handful of guys a couple of weeks ago when they were dealing with an illness, and I picked against them because I didn't think they could overcome them. Very impressed with what the Stallions are doing. They are the #1 team in the USFL. But that is my power rankings, everyone. I appreciate you guys for watching. Again, let me know your power rankings. How are you feeling about all 8 of these teams? What would you order them as from worst to first? Let me know in the comment section. Don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and check out some of the other content. We'll be doing more draft grades throughout this week. There won't be one today. I took the last couple of days off. I've had a really busy week of work, and just the last couple of days to more so and just enjoy myself for a little bit, because I have been grinding nonstop with this and work at the same time. So we'll get back to draft grades tomorrow. Again, I appreciate you all. Thank you all for watching. I will see you all in the next video. I'll catch you later. Have a good one.